You send a text, then you turn your phone face down, tell yourself you're not going to check it, and pick up whatever you were doing before. 30 seconds later, you're checking it. Not because you need to, not because anything urgent is happening, but because some quiet, nagging part of you needs to know. Are they going to respond? Is everything okay? Did I say something wrong? And then there's the other version of this. Your phone battery dies while you're out, or you're somewhere with no signal. A subway, a flight, a remote cabin you were actually excited to visit. And instead of feeling free, you feel this creeping unease, a tightness in your chest that doesn't quite make sense given the actual situation. Nothing is wrong. Nobody is hurt. You're just unreachable. And somehow that alone feels like enough to make your stomach drop.
If you've ever felt that specific flavor of anxious, the one that has no clear cause, just a low hum of something isn't right, this is for you. Because what you're feeling isn't random, and it's definitely not irrational, even if it feels that way in the moment. Let's talk about why being unreachable can feel like danger, even when you're objectively safe. Think about the last time you were waiting for a reply, and it didn't come. Maybe it was a friend who usually responds fast, and suddenly there's silence. Maybe it was a partner who said, "I'll call you tonight," and tonight came and went. Maybe it was just a coworker who left you on read after a completely normal message. Rationally, you know there are 100 boring explanations. They're busy. Their phone died. They're in a meeting. They simply forgot. But your body doesn't go looking for the boring explanation first. Your body goes looking for the scary one. Did I do something wrong? Are they mad at me? Is this the beginning of them pulling away? And here's the strange part. This isn't really about the phone or the message or even the person on the other end. It's about something much older and much deeper. It's about connection and what happens in us when connection feels uncertain. This matters more than it might seem, because I feel anxious when I can't reach someone sounds like a small modern inconvenience, a side effect of smartphones and instant messaging. But the feeling itself is ancient. Technology didn't create this anxiety. It just gave it a new stage to perform on. For most of human history, being cut off from your people wasn't a minor inconvenience. It was a survival issue. If you got separated from your tribe, your family, your group, you were vulnerable. Alone meant unprotected. Unreachable meant unsafe. Our nervous systems were built in that world, and they haven't gotten the memo that the world has changed. So when a modern version of unreachable shows up, no reply, no signal, silence where you expected connection, some old, deep part of your brain still reads it the same way it always has. This could be dangerous. Don't relax yet. That's not weakness. That's wiring. Let's get into the psychology of it, because understanding what's actually happening in your mind can take a lot of the sting out of it. A big piece of this comes down to something called attachment. Not attachment in the vague, casual sense we use it in everyday conversation, but attachment theory, which is basically the study of how humans bond with the people they depend on, and what happens in us when that bond feels threatened. Here's the core idea. As children, we learn what safety feels like based on how our caregivers responded to us. If a caregiver was consistently present, responsive, available, reassuring, our nervous system learns something like connection is stable. People come back. I can relax. But if a caregiver was inconsistent, sometimes warm, sometimes distant, sometimes there and sometimes not, our nervous system learns something very different. Connection is unpredictable. I need to stay alert. I need to watch for signs that people are pulling away, because sometimes they do, without warning. That second nervous system doesn't get to just relax when things are quiet. Quiet doesn't mean safe to that nervous system. Quiet means pay attention. So when you're an adult and someone goes silent, or you lose the ability to reach them, that old wiring can activate. Even if your actual relationships now are safe and loving, your brain isn't responding to the present moment. It's responding to the pattern. And the pattern says silence is a warning sign. Real quick,
Before we go on, if that explanation just made something click for you, that's exactly what this channel is for. Hit subscribe if you want more of these. Now, let's see what this actually looks like in real life. Picture someone who texts, "Hey, you around?" and doesn't hear back for 2 hours. By hour 1, they've replayed the last conversation they had with that person 3 times, looking for a clue. By hour 2, they've half convinced themselves the friendship is ending. Then the reply comes, "Sorry, was in the shower, lol." And just like that, the anxiety evaporates, because it was never really about the shower. It was about the uncertainty in between. Or picture a couple where one partner travels for work. The traveling partner is in a work dinner, phone in their bag, completely present with colleagues. Meanwhile, the partner at home is checking their phone every few minutes, feeling that low simmer of unease, even though nothing is actually wrong. It's not that they don't trust their partner. It's that the absence of contact itself feels like a small emergency to their nervous system, regardless of the actual relationship being solid. Or think about the person who feels a flicker of panic when their phone battery hits 5% in an unfamiliar place. It's not really about the phone. It's about the sudden loss of their lifeline, their ability to reach someone or be reached if something happens. The device becomes a stand-in for connection itself, and losing it feels like losing your safety net. None of these people are being dramatic. They're having a very old response to a very new kind of situation. Now, here's where it gets a little deeper, because there's an emotional layer under all of this that's easy to miss. A lot of us were taught, directly or indirectly, that love and closeness aren't guaranteed. Maybe you had a parent who was emotionally there one day and checked out the next. Maybe you had a friendship that ended abruptly with no real explanation. Maybe a past relationship taught you that people can go quiet right before they leave for good. Every one of those experiences becomes a kind of internal rule book, and the rule often sounds something like this: silence can be the first sign that someone is leaving for good. So when you experience modern silence, an unanswered text, an unreachable friend, a partner who's simply asleep, you're not just reacting to that moment. You're reacting to every past moment that taught you silence could mean loss. This is why the anxiety can feel bigger than the situation calls for. It's not really, why hasn't this one person replied yet? It's closer to, is this happening again? That question is heavy, and it's usually running quietly in the background, underneath the surface level worry about a text message. Here's what most people get wrong about this kind of anxiety. They think it means something is wrong with them. They think, why can't I just be normal about this? Why do I spiral over something so small? But this reaction isn't a character flaw. It's not evidence that you're too much or too needy or too anxious. It's evidence that connection matters to you, and that somewhere along the way, you learned that connection could be lost without warning. The mistake isn't in feeling anxious. The mistake is in believing the anxiety is telling you the truth about right now. Anxiety is a very old alarm system. It's excellent at detecting danger. It's terrible at telling time. It doesn't know the difference between this happened to me once years ago and this is happening to me right now. It just knows the pattern matches and it sounds the alarm accordingly. So when you feel that jolt of worry because someone's unreachable, you're not overreacting to the present. You're reacting to the past, using the present as the trigger. So what do you actually do with this? Not stop caring. Not just don't check your phone. Not some hollow piece of advice like trust more. Because if trusting were that easy, you'd have already done it. The more honest, useful thing is this. When that anxious feeling shows up, try pausing for just a moment and asking yourself a simple question. Is this about now or is this about before? Sometimes the answer really is now. Sometimes your gut is picking up on something real, and that's worth listening to. But often, more often than we expect, the answer is before. It's an old fear, wearing the costume of a current situation. You don't have to talk yourself out of the feeling. You don't have to pretend it isn't there. You just have to gently separate what's happening in your body from what's actually happening in your life. The racing heart, the tight chest, The urge to check your phone for the 5th time in 10 minutes, that's real. But the story your mind is telling about why it's happening might be borrowed from somewhere else. That small pause, that little bit of space between the feeling and the story, is where you get some of your calm back. Not because the anxiety disappears completely, but because you stop letting it drive the whole car. Here's the realization worth sitting with. The anxiety you feel when someone is unreachable isn't proof that something is wrong with your relationships. Most of the time, it's proof of how deeply your nervous system learned that people matter, that connection matters, that being left mattered enough to still be remembered by your body, even years later. That's not a flaw in you. That's a scar with a story behind it. And scars don't mean you're broken. They mean something happened, and you survived it. And part of you is still trying to protect you from it happening again. You're not too sensitive. You're not too much. You're a person who learned, somewhere along the way, that silence can hurt, and who hasn't fully unlearned that yet. That's okay. That's human. And the fact that you even notice this pattern in yourself, that you're sitting here trying to understand it instead of just being ruled by it, that's already the beginning of change. So the next time your phone goes quiet and that familiar tightness creeps in, try not to rush to fix it or shame yourself out of it. Just notice it. Let it be there for a second. And gently remind yourself, this feeling is old. This moment is new. They don't have to be the same thing anymore.